Sai Ram, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm just going to share my screen real quick and then get started. Dear Swami, I surrender this talk at your divine lotus feet. Everything that I am, everything that I will be is your will. You and I are one, so I know you will guide this talk today. I surrender myself, Swami, as a hollow flute, so you may sing your sweet words and talk your sweet talk through me today. Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Uncle Gene. We met at a retreat that Region 9 had held several years ago, and I was one of the retreat coordinators, and Uncle Gene was our speaker. And so we got to interact quite a bit during that retreat, and then through other things here and there, like he mentioned. And then several years have passed since we've really even had much contact. So it was quite a pleasant surprise to get an email from him asking if I would be willing to share my experiences. And, I replied back and I said, this is, a beautiful honor. I would be glad to, what timeline are you thinking? And then I heard back from him and he said, oh, like this was last Thursday. He said, we would like you to speak next Thursday. And I actually had heard his voicemail because I was at work. And so I had missed his call. And I was like, I can't do this next Thursday. I need more than a week to prepare. And my first instinct was to like come up with an excuse or, I don't know, make something up that was busy that Thursday. But then I was really reminded by something. So I am an SSC Group 4 teacher at my local center in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm now the SSC coordinator. And so this year for our SSC Group 4 theme, our entire theme has been this exact question that we have been contemplating with our students. So our entire theme has been, if we got a text from Swami in this digital age, or our phone beeps and we picked it up, and this is our slide that we start every SSC class with, every Sunday or every other Sunday, and your message says Bangaru, which is how Swami very sweetly talks to his devotees, and it means a pure gold devotee. I'm recruiting students for a very special task force, and we have pre-screened our candidates and you've qualified. Click yes to accept the offer. Are you ready to take the leap? And this image just came into my moment at that moment in time when I was debating saying, I'm not ready to talk in a week from today. And I said, this is Swami's reminder of putting everything that we've been working on and working through our students with this entire year actually to action. I truly believe, I think all SSC teachers truly believe that we are given that honor to teach Swami's life and his teachings and to share that with our students, really because we need that growth ourselves. So every lesson is just in itself a beautiful Swami miracle and story of how it starts and the process and how it's really something that we each of us needed in that moment. So thank you, Uncle Gene, again, for giving me that opportunity and giving me, I guess, this test through Swami to say, yes, I am ready, Swami. And as long as I surrender and, just let him flow through me, it doesn't matter what the timing is or how prepared or unprepared I might feel I am, because he knows what's best for me. And along those lines, I wanted to share this little passage as well, which is very, very dear to me. And I'll share as I talk today kind of when it came to me. But this is something from Swami as well that I hold very dear, and it goes together. And I read this a long time ago, and basically it says, when you said yes to me, you gave up the right to be like everybody else. And that is why you draw experiences to yourself that will cleanse yourself of that which does not fit who you are. When you said yes to me, you gave me your body, your thoughts, and your actions. And when they don't suit the new you, the uncomfortableness is unbearable. But I will never give up on you. Every slip will become harder and harder to bear and less easy to remedy. You will tire of your foolishness because I love you. And though not completely aware of it, you did say yes. And so that was just another really, really sweet reminder. I hold this quote very, very close to my heart. And it's a reminder anytime I'm going through ups and downs of, this is Swami's way of really kind of polishing and working through me and making that uncomfortableness, that messiness, part of my life so I can really be who he wants me to be for his mission. So just kind of moving back, I'm going to leave this slide up for a little while, but just moving back, my journey with Swami, as far as I can recollect back, started, so I grew up in Dubai in the Middle East. That's where my family used to live. We all now live in the US, but I started with Shirdi Sai Baba being a big focus in our family, especially on my mom's side of the family and my maternal grandfather. And so we had kind of sprinklings of Sathya Sai followers in our extended family, but it was never really a direct piece of my immediate family. However, at some point in my life growing up as a child, my parents came across SSC, or in India and outside of the US, it's often called Bal Vikas. And so in Dubai, Friday is the day off. It's like our Saturday, Sunday. And so every Friday there was Bal Vikas in the community. And so my parents kind of, I think, I don't know if I was just going through one of my childhood phases of not following what they wanted me to do, or, being a rebel. So they were like, well, go to this class on Friday. Maybe you'll learn something good. Maybe you'll learn how to respect us more and do what we want you to do. And, you'll probably learn bhajans and, some prayers and all of that as well. So I started going, and the way it worked over there, our individual SSC teachers held the classes in their house. So there was a center as such, but SSC was never at the center. So I really did not have this concept of what a Sai Center is, because my connection was through SSC and through my teachers. So I'd go every Friday. We'd participate in, Ishwaram Day celebrations or Akhand Bhajans. That was usually, again, not at the center, at a different venue. And slowly but surely, Swami's picture started to, come home with me, because we'd get some kind of souvenir at a program. So we'd have these little small calendar pictures that I would bring home. My parents would have at the altar, but that was really about it. There was no further discussion as much. We might talk a little bit about, what we learned in class, or that I sang a bhajan or something like that, but really no in-depth discussions about that. So it was really more when I came to the United States for my undergrad. So at the time also, it's very interesting, because actually as I was reflecting on this today, a couple of things were just interesting, because I feel like Swami's life or his life for us shows up in different points. And like 10 years later, you might be like, 10 years ago, this happened, and that makes sense now. But one of my maternal uncles, his family is also followers of Swami, and they got into the Sai fold through Bal Vikas, which they had started to send my cousin to, because they had heard about it through me. However, they had a much deeper connection. And the interesting part is we've had on and off communication, family struggles here and there between the two families. But every time when I was reflecting today that I've needed a connection back to Swami, it's been when both families have actually been communicating with each other. And then years will go by with misunderstandings, no communication, whatever, and something will happen. So it's just been a really sweet, interesting story. But through that family, they kind of told me about, what center was like. I went to school in Massachusetts, in Lowell, Mass, but I didn't really have the opportunity to participate in center, didn't have transportation, just busy with undergrad and all of that. So, I, again, always had a picture of Swami in my altar in my dorm room, but it was never like a active connection, so to speak. It was just kind of there. And then 9/11 happened. And so I was living in Lowell, Massachusetts, just about 40 minutes from Boston. I was in charge of our tallest building on campus. I was the residence hall director. We had several students who had family on the plane, who, just a lot of just distraught, emotions. And I went through a lot as well at that period of time. But soon after, winter vacation came, and I was going to be traveling back home, which was still in the Middle East at the time. And the internal fear, the internal just stress and emotions of traveling from the United States to the Middle East right after some, major events, was really, really traumatic. I don't think I realized then how traumatic it really was, but just as I reflect on it. But I was sitting in the Boston Logan airport, again, just, departing from that airport even in general was very anxiety inducing. But there was just this lady sitting in front of me just before we boarded, and she was reading a book, and she had just, a calendar, a bookmark. And the side of the bookmark that was facing me had Swami's picture. And, I just kind of sat around. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because, I was probably judging in my head. And I'm like, I don't feel like this picture and this person go together. Like, I wasn't sure what she was reading. So finally, I mustered up some courage just to ask her. I said, oh, are you a Sai Baba devotee? And she looked at me really puzzled and quizzical and had no idea what I was talking about. And so I showed her the picture. So she had the calendar side facing her, and then Swami's picture was on the back. And she actually, I guess, she told me she had no idea what was on the back. She was using it as a calendar and a bookmark. I said, oh no, this person, like, do you follow him? He's a spiritual teacher. And she said no. And the conversation kind of ended and we boarded the plane. But I still remember exactly where I was sitting. I still remember that picture. It was a black and white picture. And in that moment, the solace that brought me, I think was probably my first real hook, or my first moment internally of saying yes to Swami that I didn't even realize I was saying at that moment. To know that Swami was so sweetly showing me, I'm here. You don't have to worry. I'm watching you all the way, as you get home, was just really, really touching for me. So I get home, and that particular trip, we had gone to drop something off again to my uncle's house, the same uncle I was talking to you about. And they had come to pick something up, and they mentioned that they were going to Puttaparthi that evening, and they would come back after New Year's, because I went home for winter break. And then, we would touch base after that and, meet up or whatever. And so that was that. And we were driving away. I was with my mom, and something came over me, and I asked her, I said, I want to go to Parthi with them. Can I go? And I fully expected her to say no, because an opportunity had come up when I was in SSC in Bal Vikas, where our entire center took a trip, our entire region at the time, I think, took a trip to India, and I didn't go. I did not get permission to go. So I was fully expecting a no. But my mom said, well, ask Dad, and if he's okay with it, I'm fine. And I can still remember that moment. I know exactly what restaurant we were going to, exactly who we were meeting up with. And as soon as we got to the next spot, it was not a time when we had cell phones. And so as soon as I got to a landline, I called my dad and kind of jumped on the opportunity. And I said, this is what's happening. Uncle and Aunt are going. Mom said, if you're okay, she's okay. So it was kind of this like tennis ball game, I guess, from like, if she says okay, I'm okay. If he says okay, I'm okay. And lo and behold, that night, they were like, well, let's see if we get tickets. Everything just happened like this. And that evening, a few hours later, I was on the plane on my way to Puttaparthi for my first time. As I was on the plane, my one of my cousins, so cousin brother and sister, but I was sitting with my cousin's sister, and she said, oh, you should write a letter to Swami. Why aren't you writing? And I said, I have no idea what you're even saying. What do you mean write a letter to Swami? So she said, oh, you should just write anything that you want to say, or if you have questions, or you can even just say, I love you, Swami, and make a card. And she kind of showed me what she was doing. So I sat in that plane from Dubai to Bangalore, and I wrote my first letter to Swami. And in retrospect, when I've talked to my parents about it or talked to my mom about it, she reminded me that the reason she said, yes, sure, go, was because that trip when I had come home, I was also very distraught with the health of one of my really, really good friends. One of my childhood friends had leukemia, and he was going to go into surgery, and we just didn't really know what was going to happen. And again, in an era that was not very technologically connected, I was like, I'm going to be gone for a few weeks, and I have no idea if this person is going to be alive when I get back. And I don't even know if I'll know or I'll hear back. And so I remember writing in my letter about my friend to Swami, which I had just kind of phased out that memory. It came back to me years later. So we get to Bharti, and I was sitting in darshan. We were kind of in the first row. And again, this is all just such a new concept for me because I'd never been. I mean, I'd seen pictures and stuff, but I'd never actually been. The culture was fine because I had been to India several times. But I was sitting with my aunt, we're in the first row, and Swami just, darshan music starts, and Swami starts walking in, and I still remember like just looking for his feet. I was like, I can't see his feet because they were just so gracefully, just so sweetly, kind of almost like a little dance, just walking by with so much grace. And everybody was holding out their letter. And so I kind of just followed lead. Again, I wasn't really sure what protocol was. I did that. And Swami took my letter. It was December 31st. It was New Year's Eve. He took my letter, which again, at the time I had no understanding of what the magnitude of that was, other than like everybody was excited that Swami took this letter from me. My aunt, who was sitting right next to me, got Pada Namaskar. And again, I just remember watching that experience in just such awe and wondering, I'm like, when did she ask him? When did he say yes? How did she know when to bow down? Like, I don't even know how all this happened in a split second, but it was just such a beautiful moment in time. And for me, that was my trip where I said, okay, this is it. I connect, and this is my internal yes. And this is my journey. What also solidified it even more for me is I went into the Bhajan Mandir later, and there's, that beautiful statue of Shirdi Baba, and I could just see those eyes sparkling. And there was something in there. I could hear this inner voice that said, we are the same. Both forms are the same. You're okay. Because I think maybe I felt an internal pull or a guilt, or I don't know, maybe that I felt like I was leaving one form for another, or this isn't what I grew up with. And I just felt like I was given that permission of it's all the same, and connect however you want to. And so that trip has always kind of stood out to me and been, really just very, very memorable. Just kind of trying to see, just have a couple of notes here for myself. But, and then speaking of my friend, actually, he is still alive. They actually started questioning the diagnosis after the fact. He did not end up having surgery. And it's kind of been this like unknown miracle. But I've known, that what I wrote in that letter is what Swami answered for me. And the love that he sent to my friend is, why he's here today. And so again, just a couple of those, like there's a lot of devotees talk about how those experiences, those dreams, those moments are just like little visiting cards, business cards that Swami pops here and there as reminders. And that is just always, every time I look at my friend's picture on Facebook, or, he says something, it always takes me back to that memory. But so that was kind of, all of that. And I came back, but then there was still this kind of gap in time, because once I came back from that trip, I was still going through college, still didn't, really make it to a center until I moved to Tucson, Arizona in 2004. So that's kind of my next leap, so to speak, in my journey with Swami. And that same cousin now lived in Tucson. And again, we had moments in time where our families hadn't talked to each other. And then for some reason we had started to talk. And so it started with me taking my cousin to the Tucson Sai Center because he needed a ride. And I was, again, familiar. So it wasn't like I just dropped him off and left. I would go with him. And that is, I think, where I feel like truly my yes to Swami and my kind of getting sucked into the whirlwind, sucked into that Bermuda Triangle, as I call it, began. So before knew it, I was, singing bhajans. They asked me to teach SSC at the center. I was the Tucson Center YA coordinator. And then 2 years after that, I was asked to be the Region 9 female YA rep. And I remember getting off that call too, after I said, sure, I'll do that. And I remember saying, I have no idea what I just said yes to. I don't even know what this position entails and like how I was picked. But again, every time I go back to this, this whole essay or this whole promise from Swami that's on your screen, that was, again, another moment where I said yes. I said yes to being part of the Sai Army, part of that whole organization and movement, and saying yes to Swami to work through me. And then kind of, life has just been an interesting journey, filled with all kinds of ups and downs and service and experiences and all of that. And so that same year, going back to that 2004, where I started to go to the Tucson Center, was also one of the Region 9 retreats, the Amrit retreat, which is the same retreat at which, not that year, a different year where Uncle Gene and I met, but the year that I went, my first year at the retreat in 2004, Sundar Iyer was the speaker. And, he's a really great speaker. Lots of things stand out. But two stories that he shared specifically stood out to me till date, and are things I still kind of do and keep at heart. One was he talked about how he would Sundar Iyer was living with Swami, and he would kind of go help Swami with all the letters and collecting them from devotees. And one day he was sitting with Swami, and Swami was just opening letter after letter after letter, and he just was looking so sad. And he was just like, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. And then he looked up, he said, problem, problem, problem. And so in Telugu, which I don't speak Telugu, so I'm not going to say it, I'll say it in English. But basically Swami was like, every letter is a problem. And every letter is, Swami, help me with this problem, this problem, this problem. Not one letter says, thank you, Swami. And that just touched me so much. And so I journal a lot. I actually have my journal with me because I have little, experiences in there. And I took it to heart that day that I will always start my conversations with Swami, whether it's writing in a journal or my internal dialogue with him, or sometimes when I'm driving, I talk out loud because I feel like Swami is sitting in the passenger seat with me. I always start with thank you. Thank you, Swami, for this beautiful day, or thank you, Swami, for what you've given me. Are there times that I slip? For sure, and I have to be reminded, but I try my hardest that even if I'm asking for things or asking for guidance, I'm still thanking him for the situation, because I know that is given to me for a reason. The other, and I think there's just so much power to gratitude. I mean, even just science and research, shows that the amount of just positive energy that spreads through us and through others and through the universe when you're grateful and you express that is just really immense. And so I think that's just been a personal sadhana for me as well. Especially this year, these last 2 years with COVID, I do work at a hospital. I work with premature infants. And so it's been really challenging with visitation and mothers being separated from their babies or very sick infants, on top of just overall hospital culture and rules and regulations. And I think really the only way I've been able to stay somewhat sane and grounded is thanking Swami for the little things that he has given me. The fact that I still have a job, the fact that I have a job that I love immensely, that I can do his work every day. So that is, I think, just a huge teachable moment for me, and something that if you, did take away, just saying thank you to Swami, because I think we burden him so much with things, and I think we owe it to him to also say thank you. The other story that Sundar Iyer shared was about how Swami says he has this beautiful golden plane ready, but he feels like when it comes time, there's only going to be a handful of people that are going to be willing to jump onto that plane ride with him. And in that moment, again, I was like, I am going to do whatever it takes to prepare myself. So when it comes time, I am getting on that golden plane. If that means I'm hanging off the tail, so be it, but I am getting on that plane. And I think that, again, I was reminded by that again today, or the other day too, when I was thinking about this whole, saying yes. I said, I'm going to say yes, no matter, and whatever it takes, and Swami will work through me and get me ready for that plane ride with him. So those are two stories that I really feel like I hold true to heart and try to lead my life often with, or that helps me kind of come back and reground when I feel like I'm kind of going astray or questioning things. And then 2007 came, which was the World Youth Conference in Puttaparthi. And that was just another experience for me. I was going through some other very personal struggles, and the entire trip was very physically exhausting as well. We stayed up all of the youth, we'd stay up nights and nights and nights and working on, dances and dramas and exhibitions and all kinds of things. And Swami would so sweetly ask the coordinators, have the girls eaten? Make sure the girls eat because they're all falling sick. And so we'd get these instructions of, oh, Swami has, said this, like, we're going to take a day off. Like, all practices are canceled because Swami wants all of his children to be well. Or like other little things, like, I mean, we always say, all of us that went there, we feel like Swami treated us like princesses. We would have this huge tent behind the North Building for our meals. And the first day of the conference, it was all South Indian food. And there were international delegates from all over, and a lot of us, just not used to a lot of spicy foods. And then the next day, it was like, there was pasta and bread and pizza and South Indian and North Indian and 4 different desserts. And the organizers were telling us how Swami was very upset that there was not food for everybody, as per their palate, and how, again, the children are staying awake and they're not eating well. This is like their only big meal that they're eating because they're working for Swami. And so please make sure that it's nutritious. And he would look at the menu and make sure everything was what he wanted it to be. He looked at everything from our name badges, the design, the color, the saris we were getting. So just hearing all of those stories and seeing Swami's sweetness throughout that trip, despite a lot of what I was going on, just really strengthened my faith. And I knew that if I ever needed stuff, Swami would be there for me. In that trip, I had a couple of beautiful opportunities to sing in front of Swami. I was part of the International Youth Choir. And so we sang we sang the day after Guru Purnima. And so it was a beautiful experience to do that. And then also I was part of the ladies' bhajan group. And so we were able to offer our voices to Swami through that as well. And again, just watching his expression and watching that love shine through and how well he took care of us was, again, just that moment that nobody else but our Divine Mother, could do that for us. We always say, even ourselves, even our own mothers, may have conditions or conditional things or expectations, but Swami just pours his love, and all he really expects is for us to surrender and let him work through us. And so those were just beautiful memories that I feel blessed to have experienced. The following year, so 2008 to 2012-ish was, again, a very, very trying time for me. Lots of things were going on. I was just lots of Maya, lots of illusions, lots of struggles. I was just having to make some difficult decisions in my life and was being judged for a lot of those decisions by family, by friends, by Sai Center, lots of different things. But around that time came the World Education Conference. And prior to that, I had actually had a very interesting dream. And I have not had a lot of Swami dreams, but the ones I've had have been very vivid. But I remember I was sitting in Sai Kulwant Hall, kind of right next to the black, marble block, and before the hospital wing starts, exactly where you can see the interview window in my dream. And I was sitting there, and then I kind of walked up, and for some reason I was, called up to go onto the actual veranda. So I was walking up, I got Pada Namaskar from Swami, and then he materialized a gold chain and put that around my neck. And my mother was sitting in the audience in my dream. And my parents have never been to Parthi till date. And so again, that was a very sweet experience for me to see my mother sitting there. And I remember Swami looking at her, and internally there was this conversation of, I have my hand on her. She has my blessing. You don't have to worry. And then kind of faded away. And then the next scene, I was in this kind of dark hallway and kind of walking through, but then somehow I ended up in my school playground. And my mom was a teacher in my school as well. And so I'm showing all of my friends, this is also my dream, this chain that Swami materialized. And, like, look at this, my Swami gave me this. And everybody was looking at it and saying, this is not even a real gold chain. It's fake. There's, your Swami is fake. The chain is fake. All of this is fake. I don't know why you believe in this. And I kept standing there saying, no, this is real. My Swami is real. And so goes back to that dark hallway. And I don't even think this ever existed or exists. I don't know, but it was behind the veranda, behind Bhajan hall. And there was this long, dark veranda, a lot of different rooms. And I was somehow walking there and I heard this booming voice, and it was Swami's voice, saying, "What are you doing here?" And I turned around and I just started sobbing. And I said, "Swami, like, nobody believes me. Everybody's saying this is fake. Everybody's saying you're fake. My chain isn't real." And Swami, again, put the chain on my head and he said, "I know it's real and you know it's real. And that's all that matters. And you are a pure devotee, and that's all that matters." And again, that just, that dream is something I have just, really, really held close to me. And I think it gave me a lot of strength, again, to really just stay connected with Swami and who I am within, and not worry about what the world thought of me or what the world said, you should do this or shouldn't do this, or this is right or this is wrong. Because as long as my Swami knew what was right, and he had faith in me and I had faith in him, that's really all that mattered, because I had said yes and I knew he would be there working through me. So then in 2008 is the World Education Conference. And I was part of the exhibition team. And as part of that, and actually, so just a couple of things. When this is actually around that time, this passage came to me as well. And a few of the things that I've highlighted and read are the things that have really, really stood out to me when I, again, falter, or when I have stress, or I feel like I just need to reground myself. These are the things that I think about. Just how when I said yes to Swami, I gave up the right to be like everybody else. So of course I would be different. Of course I might look like I'm going against the grain, because that's the choice I made. I'm choosing to follow what I'm led to do by my divine self that is led by Swami. And also I knew that when Swami says, "I challenge you and I tempt you every day," that I would have these constant tests and struggles, but that it was his way of, again, polishing and making me shine so I could be that pure gold devotee for him. And then that promise of how he would never give up on me. And I might tire of my foolishness and my mistakes, but he would never give up. And that was because whether I knew it or I didn't know it, I had chosen to say yes to him. So again, these are just things that I always hold really close to myself. But this is the exhibition hall where Swami was, going to come inaugurate and all that. So we had we had done so much work with this exhibition all over the country, all over the world. We were printing all these things and making sure everything was done. And every day we would, hear, "Swami's coming to inaugurate today." "No, he's not coming. He's coming. He's not coming." So it was this yearning and prayer. And we would all sit. There was an altar at the center of the entire exhibition hall that we had made a beautiful altar. And so we'd all sit there every day and chant Gayatris and Sai Gayatris and just yearning for Swami's presence. Some of us who were involved with this exhibition were also involved with the youth conference exhibition the year before, and Swami had not come in physical form to inaugurate it. So there was just this like yearning to say, okay, not another exhibition, Swami, where you're not going to come. And then finally Swami came, and I've circled myself in that red circle in the back. That's kind of where I was at. I was kind of assigned some of those panels behind me to talk about it if Swami came by. And it just seemed like this impossible task, because it was constantly Swami surrounded by what I call the army of white, right? Like you see in this picture, there's this little orange speck, and then it's all white. And so Swami was going from section to section, and I was like, I don't know if Swami's ever going to come here. And just the way he meandered through, he did not come in that section where I was standing. And all I could see from where I was standing over here is obviously, again, just white and barely maybe like a speck of Swami's hair, but not really a whole lot. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll get my turn. Maybe I'll get a better glimpse. So Swami kind of went around everywhere, and he finished this section and he was leaving. This is towards the exit, and you kind of see me in the corner again under that fan. I said, okay, because we kind of had moved away from our section. We were, we had a certain protocol of where to go after each step of this entire journey. And so I kind of sat there, and Swami was wheeling by. And again, we have the army of white, and you see the orange arrow kind of pointing to where I was at. And so I sat there just, again, just, so happy to just get this close view of Swami after so many years. And Dr. Reddy is standing over there. You can see him on the left. And this is right before he was getting ready to tell Swami, this is Ramya. She's done a lot of work for the exhibition, which I remember thinking, like, does Swami really need an introduction to who I am? Like, why does somebody have to say, Swami, this is Ramya, she's done work? But again, just, the sweetness of how Swami plays with like our mind and just the entire scenario and the just, protocols and, maintaining some kind of order. So, he was mentioning that. And then actually what happened is the girls around me kind of jumped up first before anything and got Pada Namaskar. So I just kind of stayed back. We've always been taught, just stay back until you get your sign. But again, I didn't really know what my sign would be because I just didn't know. So then when Reddy uncle, when Narendran uncle, said, this is Ramya, I was like, okay, this must be my cue. And so that's actually when I bent down and I got Pada Namaskar, but it was so quick. It was like a span of a second, because I think I almost was, again, fearful because I didn't know what to do. So I just quickly went, touched his feet, said, thank you, Swami, and came back. So it must have happened so quick, or it's Swami's will, that I have pictures before and after, but I don't have a picture of the actual Pada Namaskar. I've gone through like so many pictures, at Radio Sai, at the organization, and just that one isn't there. And I said, okay, so be it, Swami. So that day got over, I was excited. I updated everybody at home. I got Pada Namaskar. Everybody was like delighted for me, but there was still something inside. There was a void and, monkey mind. I said, but it was just like a little touch, Swami, and I didn't even truly feel it. And everybody talks about how soft your feet are, and this never-ending experience where time stopped, and I just didn't get that, and I just don't feel satisfied. Like, this was not enough. And so then again, a few days passed by, kind of forgot about it. Then we came to the closing day of the exhibition. So those of us that were involved with the exhibition, many of us would finish exhibition duty, and then we would help with Seva Dal duty, lining up, helping people sit in their rows, their designated spots. And so that particular day, we were asked to, sit in the front row of a specific area right in front of the veranda. So we sat there, everybody was seated. And then all of a sudden our entire block was moved because there was a Russian choir and they needed additional space. And so everybody was just shifted over except for 2 rows, the first and the second row. And I was in the first row. And so that was really interesting too, because we kind of sat around, we're like, should we move? Should we not? We're not VIPs, but we were asked to sit here. And so we just kind of sat still. And as I waited for darshan to start, I realized that I was sitting in the exact same spot that I was sitting in my dream, right in front of the veranda, right smack. I could see the fan in the interview room spinning. So that's kind of where I was sitting, for those of you that have maybe been to Parthi or are familiar. So Swami came, the choir sang, all of that happened. And then he went into the interview room. And a lot of us were like, oh, when maybe Swami will come out, and again, in my dream, I've had an interview with him. He's given me a gold chain. And so I'm like, is this, a remanifestation? Is this going to happen? Swami came out of the interview room with a tray of a bunch of stuff. And then he was coming down the little ramp, and again, sea of white around him, came down the ramp. And for a moment in time, it was just Swami in his chair. For some reason, the sea of white had disappeared. They had gone off to do something else. And Swami was just sitting there directly in front of me. And again, in his golden chair, beautiful sight. And he came around to us, right in this chair this way, straight to us, and started handing out chocolate that was wrapped and looked like gold coins. So I got a gold chain in my dream, and this was now a gold coin. And I actually still have the wrappers from it over here. I have a picture of it. And the coin said 999, which I had read as 99.9. And so I read that as 99.9% pure. And so Swami came by again, right there. And I got a chance to, there was this internal connection. I just knew this was my moment. And I bent over and I touched his feet. And that entire swarm of women behind me were all over me, and I could not get up. And I just sat there with my hands on Swami's feet, soaking it in, feeling that softness, just that moment, that time, that never-ending time that I had complained about. And then all of a sudden everybody, lifted, and I got up, and this picture might be after that. Just such a blissful moment. So then Swami starts throwing this chocolate to everybody. Would kind of toss it very gracefully. And he tossed it, and it just didn't land in my hand. And then he went away to another section. And again, someone gave me their chocolate, and I was like, okay, this is great, but it's not, Swami did not give me the chocolate in my hand. Somebody else gave it to me. So still wasn't enough. So Swami went around the medical block, and then he came all the way right back. He just suddenly, instead of going, just changed route, came all the way back. And this is a picture where he again was tossing coins again. He threw a couple at me. They would land in my palm and jump off, and they would land in my palm and jump off. And the third time he put it in there and put this firm hand on it. And I quickly clenched my fist, and I had now received my gold coin from Swami. So again, it was just like such a touching experience. I think at the time of my life when this happened, I needed that. I needed that reassurance. I needed to know that no matter what decisions I was going to be making with my life, no matter what the world was going to say about them, Swami was there with me, just like he had said in my dream. And just getting that beautiful experience, and just that physical proximity, which is just so touching. I feel very, very, very blessed. And also it kept kind of reminding me again of just Sundarayar's story of, purifying myself and reminding myself every time I look at those coins of, okay, I need to get to 100%. I need to get to Bangaru status, which is 100% gold. So I'm ready for that gold plane, and you have to work through me, Swami, for all of that. So let me just think about that. All right, so obviously lots has happened, since that trip. Lots of different service projects. I mean, there's so many experiences. Like, I feel like sometimes I even have forgotten about them, because I feel like my whole life is pretty much Swami filled. And so one of the things I've worked very, very hard, and I continue to work hard on, is to try and not silo my life. So it's not, this is my Sai work, this is my work, this is my homework, but trying to kind of ebb and flow seamlessly through that. Again, it's not always easy, and I don't always succeed. But as a result of that, I feel like it's hard to always quantify or, just number, oh, I did this project or this project or this project. I truly feel like any work you're doing, and especially any work that you're doing in the name of Sai, I always say it's like prasadam. It's like his blessing. I'll sign up for things, or things will come up, or, like this conference or that conference, this retreat, whatever. Can you do this video editing, or like whatever the task might be. And regardless of how much I have going on, I have always said yes when it comes to that. Even sometimes if I'm like, I don't really, I don't know how I feel about this person. I don't know if I agree with the organizational method of how they're doing this, but, oh, it's Swami's work, I'm going to say yes. Because I truly feel like when you say yes to that work, he figures it out. He sends you energy. It's his visiting card of saying, here, do this so I can continue to keep sending you what you need and continue to work through you. And believe it or not, I mean, many of you may have had this experience. When you start doing that, all of a sudden meetings will get rescheduled. Patients will cancel. All of a sudden I'm not sleepy at like 4 a.m. and I can get something done. But other nights I would be like, oh, I can't even stay awake. I need to fall asleep. I'm tired, or I'll procrastinate. So I almost feel like doing Swami's work keeps me more organized and gets me through everything else, because that becomes my priority. It's like, all of those, big rocks in the jar, all of my big priorities, and then all the little things kind of fit in, and all the sand kind of fits in where it needs to. So much obviously has happened, since 2008. And we don't have our beautiful, Swami's form with us. But honestly, I I always felt prepared. I think Swami really prepared us, especially those of us outside of India or who didn't have a lot of physical proximity. I always thought, I said, center has always been a chair and a picture and a robe. And center will continue to be a chair and a center and a robe. And so will my home. But what is different is, what is that connection with me inside? Where is that center? Where is that chair and a robe and Swami's picture internally? So I don't need to look externally. And that's really been a big part of my journey. The night before Swami left the form, I got another dream. I was in Waco, Texas at this point, in grad school, another round of grad school, and kind of in a little bit of an isolated spot again. I would have to drive, either 2 hours to Austin or Dallas to go to a center. So I didn't really attend regularly for the 2 years I was there. But I got a dream where I was in the hospital in Puttaparthi. And I remember just seeing, kind of like that circular hospital, window that you can look into. It's usually a lot of like Indian soap operas and stuff where like everyone's looking into the OR. And it was a black and white dream. And I remember looking, kind of walking around the hospital, and everybody's, face was just a little down, and, just kind of the surreal, odd feeling. And I looked through the glass and I saw Swami's form, just laying there. And I knew that it was just the physical body. And I remember, again, just looking around in my dream and wondering why everybody was just looking sad and down and upset. Because to me, I said, but Swami's still here. Swami is within me. So I remember waking up from that dream, and it felt weird and surreal. Like I'm not going to deny that, but it didn't feel like this. I was not overpowered by emotion or, sadness or any of that. And maybe part of it was also because Swami had prepared me, because for a year prior to that, I was in a city that I didn't have a center. I left from the Mesa Center, which was very active, to Waco, Texas, where I didn't have anything. So maybe that was part of that journey. But also what came to mind is, we always chant Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. From the mortal, take me to immortality. And that came to me in that moment. And I said, Swami, this is probably what you wanted me to learn every single time that I was chanting that prayer at the end of bhajans, at the end of center, is that the form was not everything. It was that immortal connection, of that heart-to-heart connection, is what you really wanted me to know. And so again, it was a moment of saying thank you to Swami, and kind of, moving on with things. And so again, I think just, these are just little experiences that I'm sharing that has kept me grounded, and kept me connected with Swami. So much, again, is happening in our world, COVID, no COVID, all of that. And I truly feel like my connection with Swami is through my conversations with him. It's a one-on-one connection. There's actually been a time where I feel like, and I'm someone that loves music. I sing, I'm trained. I would participate regularly in bhajans. But there also came a time for me where I was like, I need to just kind of silence myself and, not worry about, a lot of the instruments and shruti and pitches, they were starting to really kind of cloud my mind, and take me away from my true purpose. And so I've kind of actually enjoyed having the pandemic and doing stuff on Zoom where I can just connect and join when I want to, and not join when I don't want to, or silence or mute, and you just kind of go internally. I also, every day for me when I am going into work, my prayer to Swami, like in the beginning here, is I always ask Swami to make me a hollow flute, because another story that I always remember is Radha always asking Krishna why he held the flute closer to him than she was. And Krishna's reply was, the flute is hollow and just lets me do my work. And there's no ego, there's no thought, there's nothing. I can just play my music and do my work. And so that's been my constant prayer to Swami. Every day I go in, that's my breath. I said, Swami, please work through me. Right before I touch any of my babies that I'm working with, I picture Swami there. I picture him working through me. There have been numerous occasions where I have seen a baby moments before they pass. They pass away and they don't make it. And it was not necessarily a baby that was on my caseload, but something within said, you need to go touch this baby. And those have been moments for me where I've said, this is maybe that soul's connection with Swami. And I'm just this instrument that needed to pass this love to them so that they can leave with whatever they came to do. So, I mean, that's just, I guess, my journey with Swami. And, you know, again, every day we go through stuff. I think if we can just stop and have gratitude for those lessons, and in those moments of why me, Swami, why me, Swami, why me, Swami. And thankfully, I have a husband that reminds me of that all the time. He is also in Swami's fold, and we have a lot of beautiful discussions together. And so when I stray, he keeps me grounded. When the same lessons come back, he reminds me, well, there's something you have to learn, which is why it's coming back. There's something you did not get the first time around. And the other reminder is always, Swami only sends us lessons and experiences that he knows we can succeed in. And so remembering that is always key as well, because he's not going to let us fail. He's there. And so finding that inner courage and saying, I can do this because the only reason this came to me is because Swami knows I can do this. And so always saying yes to that challenge is, I think, my biggest, I guess, takeaway from this entire experience. This is a picture of those gold chocolate coins. I did eventually eat the chocolate after hoarding it for a little while, but like I showed you, I still have the foil and all of that I keep close to me and remind myself of that. And this is actually a quote that I have laminated and I have right by my sink, and I look at it every morning, because this is another reminder for me when I feel like, Swami, are you really listening? Are you ignoring me? You know, sometimes we've had this experience even in darshan where Swami will just purposely avoid you. And this is a quote from Swami. I sometimes act as if I keep you at a distance, and this is done only to reform you more quickly. When a stretch of road is being repaired, I go by a detour and I do not use that bit of road for some time. The purpose is to let the repair work proceed more quickly so that I may use that road again. And so even when I'm driving, when I kind of drive through potholes or a cracked road, this quote comes to mind. And I know that it's not Swami ignoring me, but instead it's Swami working on me. And so I just want to end with really a quick song that I think summarizes all of this. And so I'll just sing that and then close. So. I want to hear you call me Bangaru, Sathya Sai, my treasured Guru. I want to be your pure gold devotee, Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai. Is my heart pure enough? Do I always live in truth? Do I love and serve my fellow man? Are my thoughts, words, and deeds in harmony, enough to be your pure gold devotee? I want to hear you call me Bangaru, Sathya Sai, my treasured Guru. I want to be your pure gold devotee, Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai. Have I met each test with calm equanimity? Have I seen through the lures of this world? Have I surrendered myself as an instrument towards you, enough to be your pure gold devotee? Enough to be your pure gold devotee. Sai Ram.